In this video, I will show you how to apply this Terrazzo interior-exterior floor and porch paint covering by Daich, and most importantly, give you my opinion about the product and application process. The shade I used is Glacier and the finish is satin, although they recommend coating the product with a sealer afterwards. This Terrazzo covering is not an epoxy coating because there's only one part and there is no chemical reaction from mixing a resin and a hardener, which makes it a little easier to work with, and you don't have to worry about bubbles from over mixing nor spots that don't dry. The main battle is just to have to mix the product evenly for aesthetic reasons because all the grainy stuff settles to the bottom of the bucket and you want to stir it up as much as possible so that you have an even coating of the little pebbles. In fact, I would recommend leaving the bucket upside down for a few hours before opening because all those grains settle to the bottom after sitting upright for a long time. To mix the product, the instructions say to mix by hand or with a drill until the mixture is uniform and there is no clumping. I don't care how strong you are, this is a huge pain to mix by hand, as you can see, and I highly recommend using a drill with a mixing paddle. I started off with my small electric drill using a small mixing paddle and it was not doing much, and the paddle even broke off inside the bucket. So I then used my hammer drill on the lowest setting using this large mixing paddle, which made things much easier, even though I still wished I had turned the bucket upside down first. See the comments and/or description for Amazon product links. Then the instructions tell you to moisten the roller sleeve before using. I purchased the recommended 3/8 inch Terrazzo roller sleeve from Lowe's, but I'm sure any will work. After moistening, squeeze out the extra liquids. They also say to pour out 12-inch puddles at a time to work with, but since I was doing a small closet space, I decided to pour out the whole thing at once. One of the biggest complaints in the reviews was that the low coverage area of this product, but you can see in the product description that 8 gallons only covers about 150 square feet. This closet is 42 by 55 inches, which is about 18 square feet, so that's pretty much the exact coverage area for 1 gallon, although I think I could have squeezed out a little more. The instructions also tell you to use a primer underneath, which I did not do. And of course, it is essential to clean and dry your floor before applying any primer, although this paint is pretty forgiving of debris since it's grainy. Instead of using primer, I poured a gray epoxy paint as my first layer, which is another flooring product that I wanted to test out for fun called a magic resin. Video for that product coming soon. Another complaint that I saw in the reviews was that this product is transparent and that the color underneath shows through. So I would definitely recommend painting the floor underneath with some kind of gray floor paint such as Rustoleum, or even try out an epoxy floor covering. If not, you will probably end up needing to do 2 layers, which the instructions say to do after 24 hours. They also tell you to use a sealer for slip resistance on top, but I assume that this is also to protect from wear and tear. I can imagine that after a lot of foot traffic, the grains start to wear down and flatten out. For this reason, I decided to pour out a layer of clear epoxy over top instead of just doing a sealer. You will also notice that I used a small paintbrush for the edges because I did not remove the baseboards before application out of sheer laziness. I would definitely recommend removing the baseboards when applying this product or any epoxy to make for a clean, professional finish and also to prevent the baseboards from being glued in place. This product definitely streaks when applying around the edges with a paintbrush, which is another reason to remove the baseboards so you can use a roller all the way around and get an even finish. A word of caution, however, I did get a lot of splatter on the walls and baseboards from this paint, so do yourself a favor and cover the walls with some sort of plastic at least a foot up. You can buy rolls of plastic sheeting for painting or even use Contractor garbage bags. I ended up painting over all the splatter with Kills primer and then regular wall paint since this is a closet and it doesn't really matter. I also used a plastic spiky roller that is used for epoxy applications to smooth out the thick areas, and this may have contributed to the splatter. This tool and this step is not recommended by the instructions, but since I had it, I decided to use it. although I still ended up with thick, uneven areas at the end. Also not mentioned in the instructions is the use of spiked shoes, which are used when applying regular epoxy flooring. You may want to revisit some of the areas that you started on, and if you use regular shoes, it will ruin your work and leave footsteps, so I highly recommend buying these spiked shoes, sandal things, so that you can walk through the paint freely and even out any areas at the end. After letting the product dry for about 24 hours, you can see how the paint forms some interesting looking cracks and crevices in the areas where I may have left it a little too thick. This does make it look like real authentic concrete or sand or whatever, but this texture may be annoying when sweeping or cleaning, and this is the reason I also decided to do a layer of clear epoxy on top, which is not shown. This paint is not self-leveling, and you have to spread it out as evenly as possible with your roller, and also with a spiked roller if you wish. You can also see the area in the back where there is a big blob with a few pebbles and a lot of liquid, which is where I did not evenly mix the paint. So my final thoughts are that the application was not too difficult, but it would take a lot of patience and a lot of gallons to do a whole room. Also, I realized that this grainy pattern may be a little weird for indoor living spaces, so I won't be using it anywhere else indoors and will just stick to epoxy or vinyl. By the way, I'm not getting any commission from Lowe, nor the manufacturer, so this is a purely unbiased review, as are all my videos. I do, however, make a small commission from Amazon, so please make sure to click on those links, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow to support my work.